Cracker Barrel's numbers are in, and they are, well, they're a mixed bag. Olive Garden is going big by going small, and Starbucks is getting sued. Welcome to another episode of Extra Serving, a podcast from Nation's Restaurant News. I'm Editor-in-Chief Sam Oches, joined once again by my colleague, Executive Editor Alicia Kelso. Hello, Alicia.
Hi there.
I don't like your sweatshirt. I'm just going to say it. I didn't say it before we recorded.
I don't care.
Who are they playing this week, Alicia?
They have Nebraska at 3:30. It should be a good one.
A bout of two titans of yesteryear, or at least, well, I guess one titan of the current days, but Nebraska. Yeah,
2023's national championship was not that long ago, Sam.
All right, yeah. Well, I had it, you know what, last weekend, my two Ohios played against each other, and I have this to say, and I think this is an important thing to say to our country at this time, Alicia, because of how much everything feels like it's on fire. So for some context, I went to Ohio University. If you ever hear me say that and you say Buckeye, I will say, no, stop saying that. Go figure. There's a Michigan State. There's an Oklahoma State. There's an Oregon State. There is an Ohio and an Ohio State. I went to the better of the two, the Ohio University, not the Ohio State University. Anyway, I'm saying this all because Ohio State takes all the oxygen out of the room in the state of Ohio because it is the best football program. Did you know? Here's a fact. Ohio State has not lost to another college from the state of Ohio since like 1927. It's bananas. Okay, so that just sets the stage for what I'm about to say, which is that my Ohio came to the Horseshoe and played Ohio State this past weekend. We got trounced as we expected to, although we held in till the third or fourth quarter. We were in the game. But here's the important part to get. My sister was at the game, and she was just telling me how happy everybody was because the stakes were so low. Everybody knew Ohio State would win. And, you know, if you're not an Ohio State fan here in Columbus, the best chance is that the next highest thing you're a fan of is Ohio. Like, there's so many grads here. Ohio University is 30,000 students. So there's a ton of grads here. And it's sort of like we all win. It's like hey, we can cheer for both because we cheer for the team here in our backyard. That's the number one team in the country. But you know what? If our alma mater wins, that's fun too. So as my sister said, she said there were no fights. There were no arguments in the stands. There were people with house divided shirts, and it was a happy atmosphere. And I think that's a lesson for all of us that, you know what? We can be happy for each other, even if we root for the other team. That's what I wanted to say, Alicia.
We'll never be happy for the Buckeyes.
Okay, but hey, could you at least, well, let's say Bowling Green played Michigan recently, right?
They played Michigan during the 15-0 2023 National Championship, and I wore a house divided shirt. And I was more stressed than I've ever been because Bowling Green held their own, and I didn't want the 15-0 season to be ruined by a MAC school, even though it's my MAC school.
Okay, a little bit different, I guess.
Know.
Yeah, no Michigan fans seeing that as a moral victory or anything.
Right, but I will say Bowling Green plays in Louisville this weekend, and I will be at the game wearing orange, and I will be cheering vigorously for my Fighting Falcons.
There you go. See, let's just keep our stakes low. Let's have fun with it. Let's recognize these things are sports.
Let's just tamp down our expectations overall.
Tamp down our expectations. It made the game so easy for me to watch. I watched on TV and I'm just like, oh, good for them. I'm just so glad that Ohio kept in there.
Hey, I texted you, good for them.
And what did I text you back? Oh, they're going to lose it. Just you wait. It's only a matter of time. And it was, but doggone it. We just like to watch some good football. So I was a happy camper. My kids were really confused though. Because for my kids, it was like, wait a second, aren't we supposed to pick one side to cheer for? And I said, guys, let's just cheer for both of them. Anyway, take that for what you want to. This is not a sports podcast. I hope that's a metaphor for everything else. Let's all just be happy and human beings together. Anyway, let's talk restaurants, Alicia. Well, this was not a great week for restaurants, specifically a few restaurants. Well, okay, I'll start with, as I said at the outset here, this is a mixed bag for Cracker Barrel. I will say we'd circled this date about 6 weeks ago, a month ago, right? We'd circled the date when Cracker Barrel reports. I think for them, it was fourth quarter fiscal, wasn't it? Or something like that. And we all knew this was a big moment because of everything Cracker Barrel went through with the new logo that they ended up reversing on. A lot of their passionate customers were very angry about the new design. So we said to ourselves, well, what will the numbers show us? What will the sales figures be? And we now know. And like I said, it's a mixed bag. Right off the cuff, face value, I think a big positive, same-store sales were up 5.4%. It's certainly better than a lot of other restaurant companies can say. Before we get to traffic, Alicia, what's your reaction to sales?
Right. I mean, 5.4% is completely anomalous in this environment, particularly among full service. That said, most of it, if not all of it, came from pricing. So there's an asterisk here. I also do not want to be dismissive of the fact that this was Cracker Barrel's fifth quarter of positive same-store sales. So you take the good, you take the bad. And that is something I am circling. Really positive momentum, any which way you slice it. Again, anomalous. I can think of very few chains that have 5 straight quarters of positive same-store sales.
Especially right now. Yeah.
Especially right now. Now, this quarter came amid the logo rebrand heard around the world.
Yep.
And as following that rebrand that went viral on social media, as we've talked about over and over again, in August, traffic fell like a lead balloon, 8%. So the impact of this virality is evident in the traffic numbers, down 8%. They now expect traffic full year to be down 4 to 7%. Share prices fell. No surprise there. I will say that I think Julie Masino, given everything that she has been through in the past month plus, handled the call like a pro, thanked consumers for their input. One thing, Cracker Barrel, I don't know what their testing process was for this rebrand, for these remodels that they reversed as well. Fortunately for Cracker Barrel, only 4 restaurants were remodeled. And so they were very early days into this reversal, because that is really expensive. That is a mistake. I believe they owned it. I don't know what the fate will be moving forward. I believe they have an investor day or a board meeting in October, November. Fail fast is not a bad way to approach things, but what was the testing process? I think that those are the questions right now. Why did this fail so dramatically? I think that Cracker Barrel needed some new new imaging. I think it's dated. The argument here is they went overboard. And so I think that back to the drawing board needs to be a happy medium.
Yeah.
But I think that's trickier than ever. And Cracker Barrel just halted everything altogether. And now they have these projections down 4 to 7% on traffic. They are shifting their focus to improved operations, improved customer experience, and improved food. We've heard a lot of this as a need on all of these social media comments that we've received since the rebrand. They're coming up, for example, with a new process to make sure their biscuits continue to be a differentiator, things like that. And yeah, I think this is just a perplexing story all around for me, just because they had the momentum and, a logo just threw the biggest wrench I've seen in quite some time into all of that momentum.
Totally. I've had a number of people ask, several have posted on social media, have emailed us, have said to us in person, well, this could be the best thing that's happened to Cracker Barrel, because you have a lot of people talking about Cracker Barrel who haven't been in a lot of years. And so it was interesting to see traffic be down 8%, because I had the suspicion that perhaps you would have enough loyal customers who were mad and didn't go to Cracker Barrel, but you'd have enough people who said, oh yeah, Cracker Barrel, forgot about that company, I'm going to go check it out again. Sort of this notion that no news is bad news, that like any news puts your brand front and center and, drives attention and business. Seems like that perhaps was not the case. Perhaps the loyal customers were upset enough not to go. The other thing I would say too, Julie Masino, she emphasized over and over and over again, as our colleague Joanna Fantozzi pointed out, that she's listening to the customer, listening, right? That they listened and reverted on the logo. They listened and stopped with the remodel. That's important. Now, we have no idea how much they did or did not listen to the customer before all this was done. A company that big doesn't just do things blindly, folks. Like, I've been in enough restaurant headquarters, Alicia, you too, where we see this stuff front and center. I mean, consider a menu rollout, which arguably is less of a big deal than a rebrand, right? And a menu rollout is a maybe 8-week, limited time offer or whatever. They plan these things like 18 months in advance, folks. They're doing research. They're collecting data. They bring in people to test this stuff. Cracker Barrel, I can assure you, did not go into this blindly. But my question becomes, well, who gave them the positive feedback? And so it's, I'm sure they are flummoxed because I'm sure on paper they saw, hey, people liked this. And you want to know what? I suspect they would have liked it. Having been in one of those locations myself, a little over a month ago in Orlando. It was gorgeous. It was great. I'm not a Cracker Barrel loyal customer, so I'm not the demographic they're going for. But, with brand evolution.
Now you are.
Now I am, because I went. I went and I said, hey, this is actually not bad. And by the way, I ate some of the food and I was like, gosh, this is great.
But that's the point. I think that's getting lost, is they are trying to get customers like you who are not loyal, new customers, younger customers. And I'm sorry to cut you off, but I think that has gotten lost.
Yes.
In all of this vocal backlash, a lot of it driven by some proxy fights, and you are exactly who they're targeting, the non-loyal younger consumer.
It's a great point, which is to say you cannot survive on loyal customers alone. If you want to grow as a restaurant company, you need incremental business. You need people who are new to the brand or who are lapsed customers and say, I'm going to come back. It's a great point, Alicia, because you're right. I do not have a Cracker Barrel near me, but after my experience when I went to a newly designed one in Orlando, if I'd gotten, newly designed one here in Columbus, or even if not, I might have just said, oh, I actually had a really great experience. I think my kids would really like that. And we're going to take the family next weekend. And so you're right. Like, that's what they're going for. And so again, I think if Cracker Barrel customers had given this a chance and, if they had not been, perhaps the pump was primed a little bit for them to be angry about it from some outside voices, I think they would have been fine with it. I think they might not even thought about the logo, to be honest with you, because who looks up at the logo on the store as you're walking in? You just know, as a restaurant I like, I'm just going to walk in despite the branding, probably. But the last thing that I will say about this is I heard a speaker recently say something really smart, which is, you have to innovate or die. You have to evolve or die, right? These are adages we know very, very well. And I think that's why we've all been so perplexed about the Cracker Barrel situation, because they're only doing what restaurants should do, which is they're evolving. But the speaker said something really interesting, which is like, you have to do that in smaller steps. If you take a big step, like Cracker Barrel did, this was a big step. Your guest is not, it's going to be really jarring to your guest because the change is so drastic that it's not familiar to them. And the speaker said, you got to take smaller steps of change and you get to the same outcome, but perhaps over a longer period of time, and you ease your customer into it. I think that's a really smart takeaway. And he was referring, by the way, to his own brand, but he used the Cracker Barrel example as a good example of how it didn't work. So if we learn anything from this, it's got to be change is good, but perhaps in smaller doses, because if you rip a Band-Aid off and take a giant leap forward, it could throw off your guest no matter who your guest is. Let's talk about Dave & Buster's. So speaking of bad weeks, Dave & Buster's didn't have so great a time either, or I should say in their quarter. Dave & Buster's same-store sales were down 3%. And the CEO, is it Taryn Lau? I want to make sure I get it right because I know how it's spelled and I've never said that out loud. Taryn Lau, who of course was previously with KFC.
KFC US.
KFC US.
Yep.
He said that they're going to lean into value messaging and that they believe the messaging from the previous regime perhaps had confused things. And that's why their same-store sales are down. Alicia, I think you've got some strong feelings about that.
I don't love... We're in more trouble than we previously thought. I don't love the tactic of blaming the previous administration so hard.
Yeah.
It turned me off when Brian Niccol did that at Starbucks. I just own what you have now and move for here's what the issue was and here's how you're going to correct it. Dave & Buster's stock fell almost 20% after their call, if that shows you any indication of how the markets responded. And all of the things that he outlined, he believes the company was pushing too many appetizers, which hurt sales, which encouraged sharing. We don't want that because it's less profitable. He didn't think the company invested enough in new games. And so consumers were coming and then not coming back, which fair criticisms, all of them, especially for a concept like this. he didn't think that the staff was trained sufficiently. This one, head scratch, caused me to scratch my head a little bit. Remodeling efforts did not resonate. And obviously, as we just talked about, remodels are costly. It's a big swing. They stopped TV ads, so awareness fell, like a lead balloon. I'll use that several times today, apparently. And they ramped up promotions, which confused consumers and drove down profits, which kind of reminded me of Wendy's not so great second quarter. We have to be careful about how many promotions we're putting out. That's easier said than done in an environment that we're in right now, because there's a sense of desperation here. Sales continue to be muted. Traffic continues to be negative. Promotions, LTOs, all of these things are shown to be a good silver bullet in some circumstances. But if you push too many out, it does not only drive down profits, but it does confuse consumers. So Dave & Buster's is going to start TV ads again. They're going to retrain their staff. They've added, I believe, 10 new games. So that's a good return visit initiative. And they're going to start pushing profitable entrees over those appetizers to, again, encourage more profitability and less sharing. We'll see if it resonates. It's an ambitious plan, and he's got his work cut out for him. No question. He also sits in a really pressured category right now. And Dave & Buster's is part of a broader eatertainment chain that had a tremendous renaissance in 2022 and early 2023 as consumers were desperate to be out and about and entertained and eating and all that stuff. And now with their increasingly, pressured incomes, they are not able to do that as much anymore. And a lot of these eatertainment, we saw Pinstripes file bankruptcy this week. It's a great example.
Yeah. Yep. Totally my thought too, which is like the bigger problem here, it's beyond Dave & Buster's. It is this category of eatertainment that, look, with the state of the economy, with inflation high still, the customer, as I've said 1,000 times now, they're shrinking the consideration set. And I say this from experience, Alicia, I'm sure you too, and your family, which is that, we still go out, we still order out. We just do it less and to fewer restaurants because we know what we love. And we also know where we have loyalty points, and we know where we're going to get a deal, and we know where we get friendly service. And so whereas once upon a time, we might have spread out our business here and there, tried some new things, we're going to shrink that down to what we know we can afford, what we know is going to give us something good. Frankly, what our kids are going to love. And, that's a small enough consideration set right there. But the point is that eatertainment it exists in the space where you have to have a big consideration set. It is my opinion, because it is so niche. It's so unique. And so I'd be very curious to know the typical frequency of a Dave & Buster's guest, because I might go there for a bachelor party. I might go there for a corporate event. I might go there because a buddy's in town. But I'm not going there with any kind of frequency whatsoever. Now, I might not be their target demographic, but I think that's probably true of a lot of eatertainment, which is it's a lot of occasional kind of experiences, and we're shrinking those occasions because of cost. And so, you're right. They've got a real tough job ahead of them to figure this out, because the headwinds in eatertainment might be stronger than any other category, no matter what you do around value or, whatever. Fact of the matter is that people are battening down the hatches right now, and that's a frivolous spend for a lot of them.
It is. And not only are eatertainment concepts niche, I think the category by and large has become rather oversaturated.
Totally.
Again, that 2022 renaissance, if you will, gave a lot of people a lot of overconfidence in many instances to either expand quickly or to start new concepts. Pickleball is a great example. I can't even count how many pickleball eatertainment concepts there are. And I think it's absolutely worth noting that's easier said than done when you're dealing with the real estate involved in these concepts, which I think is one of the things that really crushed Pinstripes. We're talking 30,000 plus square feet. Rent is up just like everything else. So a lot of these concepts took out just way too much debt to get off the ground and to expand. And the category itself has been suffering as a consequence since.
Yeah. And I tell you too, with some of these, I mean, confusion, I think there's confusion in the concept itself. So we just had one of these pickleball concepts open very close to me. I won't say what brand it is, but one of them opened very close to me. Mind you, right across the street from a Top Golf, right across the street from a planned putt shack. It's like they want to make this a little eatertainment corner or something like that, which that might have been intentional. But this place is intimidating to me because I don't know how to experience it, because they come in on the face of it, pickleball. Oh, but we've also got, I don't know, bocce ball and croquet and an arcade and a bar and it's a little something for everybody. But when you're something for everybody, you're nothing for nobody. I don't know. There's a saying there, but for me, I'm just like, I don't know how to experience this. What is the occasion I should go there for? And again, not to say that I am Mr. America over here, but I do think that's probably typical for a lot of people, which is like, if I don't have an exact idea of what I'm getting out of your restaurant, well, then I'm less inclined to consider it. So if you're hey, we've got all the games, all the experiences, all the food and beverage, then I don't really know. It just intimidates me and overwhelms me. And so therefore, I just don't bother. When the place opened, I said, oh, cool, I'll have to check that out. It's been open for a couple months now. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. What am I supposed to go there for?
It's a fair point.
Okay. One full service company that's doing okay is Darden. Darden, we've talked about a lot recently, partly because I had the great pleasure of interviewing CEO Rick Cardenas for my signature series, which you can still go check out. I highly recommend you do. Alicia, I'm going to say it. Favorite interview of the year, certainly for me. Perhaps top 5 of my career. This was an all-time interview, and partly because on the surface, Rick Cardenas, he's just kind of a buttoned-up executive when you first meet him. But as you start to sit there and talk to him, you're like, holy smokes, this guy is so stinking smart. And he just had such a good handle on what was going on at Darden and where they were going. And this quarter reflects that. He said in 10 years, I believe they wanted to double. 10 years from when he started as CEO, which was 3 years ago, his goal was to double sales. And look, they are on their way, which is to say their sales system-wide were up 4.7%. If you look at their 2 biggest brands, Olive Garden and LongHorn Steakhouse, Olive Garden up 5.9, LongHorn up 5.5. This, again, considering the environment in which they are pulling this off, I think is all the more impressive. Now, their fine dining brands down slightly, although I believe down less than they were down last quarter. So there was some improvement in the fine dining brands. But, the fine dining brand, I don't want to say the fine dining brands at Darden are a drop in the bucket, but certainly a much smaller piece of the bigger puzzle at Darden. Alicia, why do you think Darden is able to pull this off when so many other full service companies cannot figure this out?
This is their case study in operational execution. And I think it's as simple as that. And everybody knows that. Everybody who follows this industry, everybody who works at that company and other companies, Darden executes consistently every single quarter. And we see that in the numbers. We still heard exceeded expectations, which is music to my ears, music to your ears, of course, especially again, during this environment. That 5.9% at Olive Garden was pretty stunning. And they have a create your own pasta platform that did really, really well. Their delivery is now up to 5% of the sales mix. They've actually started promoting it. That's a new channel for them. And they're testing smaller portions, which I think is a really intriguing development because, as Cardenas said, it is what consumers want. And he actually mentioned, like GLP-1 drugs as an example and the value proposition that comes with these smaller portions sizes of their 7 entrees that come with a lower price. This test, I think, is something that we will continue to watch. These smaller portions of the 7 entrees as part of this test still come with the signature salad and breadsticks. So if you want to talk about value, I think we don't need to say any more than that. That's a heck of a value. It's a traffic driver. It will dilute the check, but it is driving more frequency in this test. The one thing that I think that is worthy of highlighting for the company is they did caution about higher food costs, just like every other company, in particular beef costs, which are, a big wild card right now for a company that has a LongHorn Steakhouse as part of it.
Yep. And several other steakhouses in their portfolio.
Everything. So I think that kind of dampened, analysts' reaction a little bit. Mm-hmm. But I want to zoom into something real quick that Rick Cardenas did mention on the call, and that was the strength of casual dining overall.
Yeah.
To your earlier point, Sam, we have seen an outperformance in this segment versus fast casual even and quick service in very recent quarters. He said that's because they've taken less pricing than those other segments, and therefore the value perception is high. We've talked about this before. I think it's worth reiterating. I will say, I have said before, after the CPI report last week, I wonder if that pricing power is going to be sticky because full service is ticking up at a faster pace than limited service when it comes to inflation. So we'll see if that sticks. But by and large, Darden's biggest investments in the past couple of years has come from pricing below inflation, and that is paying off in droves. And I assume they'll continue to follow that strategy.
Yeah, totally. I mean, one of the questions I asked Rick during our interview was, why stick to full service? Because, my impression, you look at a company like Darden, and you think, you guys could really crush with a fast casual in this portfolio, right? I mean, they do so well with full service. If you take that full service mentality and put it into a fast casual. But he's like, nope, never planned to do it. And to his credit, like everybody, he said, well, never say never, we'll look at whatever. But he says full service is what we do, and therefore we do it. And if you look at their portfolio, there's not a lot of diversity in their portfolio. Like I just said, they've got a lot of steakhouses in that portfolio. You have a random Chewy's over here doing Tex-Mex and a random Olive Garden over here doing Italian. But for the most part, they're very dialed in on what they do. And again, they do it very well. Alicia, makes me think of, not to bring up a competitor over here, but it makes me think of Texas Roadhouse. And when you and I went to Texas Roadhouse headquarters last year for Brand Icon, and it was that same mentality. It's like, we don't change much. We just do what we do, and we do it very, very well. And there is a lesson to be learned there. However, I will say, doing these smaller portions for Olive Garden, it's not to say that they're closed off. They'll never try anything, right? They're clearly trying some new things with smaller portions. The delivery, that was a big step for Olive Garden to do delivery. Hadn't done that yet. It went in that direction, and it was very beneficial. They've discovered that it was incremental. So, point is like, do what you do it very, very well. Take a few steps outside of your comfort zone here and there. If you hear from your customer again that this is a direction they would embrace. But operational excellence, I can't tell you how much that is just so, so important for success. And if you lose focus on what really matters here, then unfortunately, I think that's going to reflect in your sales. So very encouraging to see Darden having the success that it is. But yeah, I think don't hold your breath, because with that continued increased costs, beef, we're hearing from everybody, beef is just really putting the squeeze on anybody who serves beef, which is like everybody. We don't know what to come out of that. This is why chicken is doing so well right now, right? It's got to be one of the reasons. So they got to be very, very happy. Okay. Not talking about beef or chicken, but talking about coffee. Let's talk about Starbucks. Alicia, Starbucks. Well, look, hey, Brian Niccol's era just crossed 1 year. It's interesting because it still feels so early, but 1 year is pretty long these days for, I think, executives in a C-suite. Lots of the changes have been made and have been, again, a mixed bag. But one very important change that they made is more controversial than the others, and that is the dress code. The dress code, which of course Starbucks came out and said, came out with a more strict dress code and said, this is how it's going to be. We need you to dress in XYZ. And, it's all part of improving that experience for the guest. Employees at first were disgruntled. We heard that widely, especially on social media. They were voicing their opinion. Now, though, they're taking things another step further. Employees in Illinois, Colorado, and California, I believe, have banded up to sue the company for the dress code. Is this a big deal? I guess I should start with, because this kind of stuff happens a lot, especially to a big company like Starbucks. But I think for something so visible as Starbucks dress code, maybe it feels a little bit more important than other things that happen like this.
I think it could be a big deal. I think it's far too early to tell, because the two lawsuits were just filed, and that is in Illinois and Colorado state courts. The third instance was a complaint with the California Labor and Workforce Development Agency. So although those are different, all three allege that the company is required to reimburse them for the work, this new uniform policy that went into place, to your point, in May. When that uniform code went into place, Starbucks did note that they provided 2 branded T-shirts But the dress code is far more broader than that. It's, buttoned up shirts, collared shirts, long sleeve crew neck that they can wear, any solid black shirt. And then the pants have to either be blue denim, black, or khaki. All of this to focus on, the green apron. So it's, again, part of Brian Niccol's holistic changes to amplify the branding of Starbucks as he tries to turn around the company's recent sales declines. The pushback was swift. There were unionized strikes after this. This is interesting to me because it's gone one step further in the form of a legal circumstance. And again, I think it's too early to tell if this is a big deal, but I think if they have success in court, then yeah, I think this could be hurdle to Brian Niccol's intended purpose to have a uniform look at these stores as he tries to get back to third place and tries to get back to the green apron service model and everything that comes with it. So what I think is even more interesting here is he's put in a ton of new initiatives, everything from bringing back Sharpie, messages on cups, to bringing back couches and again, striving to re-achieve that third place, to bringing back the condiment bar. I mean, we have covered this in droves, like drinking from a water hose, all the changes that he's putting into place. I think this recent piece of news indicates that it's not easy. He has a very clear vision on what he wants Starbucks to be, what he thinks it should be to turn around those sales, but these employees who have been unionizing for how long? Years and years and years. They are going to continue to fight back. And I think that is the most interesting piece of this is they're not just, I guess, rolling over and taking these changes as a kumbaya. Let's move forward as one Starbucks company and be successful. They're pushing back on some of the things that they believe lack some justice. So whatever initiatives that he has, I think that's the most interesting piece is it's a very vocal group of baristas putting some initiatives into place to help their jobs, like adding folks to, make their jobs and ease those peak times a little bit, for example. But it's not all butterflies and roses here.
Yeah, I can't help but think about the return to office movement happening right now, similar to this, kind of these things happening in parallel because, similarly, so many companies returning workers to the office or asking workers to come back either full time or just adding another day or two per week to come back into the office, and how angry that's making people. What happens is you get very used to doing a certain way of work. You settle into a lifestyle. In this instance, it would be working from home. For Starbucks, the workers were very used to wearing what they wanted. And that's been all, there's been ups and downs for Starbucks over the years. I remember at one point there was a issue with tattoos and, they perhaps more so than any other restaurant company, Starbucks has really wrestled with what do our baristas look like, dress like, should they come as they are, or should there be some sort of uniform? So this is not a new thing, but, for most other restaurant companies, a uniform is standard, right? I mean, this is a standard thing at most other restaurant companies. So on the surface, you say, guys, what's the big deal? A restaurant has a uniform. But it's just like 5 years ago. You said, guys, you work in an office. That's how work goes. You go through this period of, well, I did it differently for a long time. And so going back is actually harder because I have this other expectation. So it's a push-pull here. And I think the last thing I'd say about is, just the importance of culture. Because I do think, to your point, Alicia, if you had a culture in which there was a very strong sense of everybody playing for one team and everybody, being in this together, then I think if you ask people to wear something different, you're going to get more willingness because it's like, this is for the team. This is for our success. And so we're going to do it. And so you do wonder what kind of culture is in a company where there is so much pushback. Now, I recognize culture across 17,000 locations is quite different than if you have 10 restaurants and everybody's playing for the same team. So you're going to have a very diverse set of opinions. You're going to have a lot of pushback. I'm sure they have a lot of people who are embracing it and they do see it as being a part of the team. But there's no easy solution here.
There isn't, but I do think the most important angle here is the reimbursement piece. If they are forced to wear that uniform, and I agree with you, restaurant companies across the industry are forced to wear uniforms. But if they are forced and they're not getting reimbursed for that, they could have a very solid case. And as part of that unionization and those employees, a big grievance that they've had over the years is that pay piece. And so having to pay for a new uniform is going to, stoke that fire even more, because that's actually a pay cut.
Totally. All right, let's land the airplane. One last thing we want to talk about real quick, though, is closures. Store closures specifically this week. I think as far as store closures goes, this was the biggest news of the week, which is that Salad and Go is going to close about, is it a third of their locations? About
almost a
40-ish locations. Salad and Go, again, a drive-through salad company that has been around 10 or 15 years, based in Arizona, but I think really put on the map when former Wingstop CEO, current Jersey Mike's CEO, Charlie Morrison, took the CEO role at Salad and Go a few years back. And it was exciting to see. Here's a company that they had a vertically integrated supply chain, that was all designed around keeping our salads at like $8, served in a drive-through window. The goal here is, can you get a company that's going to finally solve for serving healthier food at an affordable price point and quickly? And Salad and Go was really right out ahead of that. I think if anybody was going to figure it out, it seemed like it was going to be them. And they might still yet, I should say. But news coming out that they're going to close a third of their locations is pretty startling. I mean, again, 40 locations for a much bigger company is one thing. But when you have only, 100 and change, 40 locations is a big, big deal, Alicia.
Yeah. I think they had about 150 locations at the beginning of this year. When was this company founded? It's not that old.
Early 2010s, I want to say 11 to 11, 12, somewhere in there.
They grew really, really quickly.
Yes.
And I know like the past couple of years on Technomic's top 500, they've been among the top, among the fastest growing. And I think that drive-through salad is an intriguing concept. I think when the economy goes boom, that it becomes less intriguing. I think people tend to gravitate toward their comfort food while they're becoming more selective. So I think that was kind of a 1-2 punch for them is, we grew too fast, and then consumers are pulling back. We're not in their consideration set because they're not eating, they're eating more selectively now. We'll see what happens with this company. I think that they can just go either way, but we're seeing again a lot of closures at a lot of brands for the express purpose of getting right for that long-term growth. And we always call it culling the plant. I'm no gardener.
Pruning.
My wife does the gardening.
I can tell.
Hey, I take care of the inside of the house. Pruning the plants, to make a healthier plant. And we've seen this now for 2 years. This year is maybe worse than last year. And that's simply also because cost inputs remain so high and the industry has become oversaturated. So Salad and Go is just one recent example. There's a bevy of examples, a lot of them that have been covered in the past month. And, that's on top of the casual dining segments issues from last year that impacted TGI Fridays, it impacted Hooters, it impacted Denny's and Red Robin. We have seen Applebee's. We've seen this across segments now, and it's just a continuation of what's happening in the environment combined with, I would argue, an oversaturation. We have too many restaurants for the amount of occasions that consumers can afford right now.
That is a very succinct way of putting it, Alicia. Well done.
I feel bad saying that, I feel bad.
But it is so true. Listen, Iron Hill also closed 3 locations.
Which is 15% of their system.
15% of their system. And we should say, too, going back to Cracker Barrel, Maple Street, an investment Cracker Barrel made several years ago. It is a more fast casual daytime cafe type concept, breakfast brunch. Cracker Barrel had made an investment in it many years ago. Maple Street closed. How many locations did Maple Street close?
So over a dozen. Again, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's a big over 20%.
So that's why we had to bring this up because look, if you look at the macro climate here, things are tough. And to your point, Alicia, there's only so much to go around. And so you're going to see that pruning happening. But I think it's particularly interesting if you look at like Maple Street and, Cracker Barrel made that investment in Maple Street. You saw a number of other bigger companies investing in those smaller players. Denny's did it with Kiki's. They were investing on more of a scalable concept to come in and be this option for their franchisees, their operators, to have a complementary business and to have growth opportunity if they've saturated a market. And so I think noteworthy in that regard, in that, they are saying we need to batten down the hatches. We need to weather this storm. And what is expendable at this point in time? And for Cracker Barrel, Maple Street became expendable. Alicia, I got to go check and see. There's one here right by me at Polaris. I don't know if that one has closed, but it says everything to say that I don't know because I haven't been eating there. Too many breakfast places, if you ask me. Talking about too many restaurants. There's just too many breakfast places. And as we know, breakfast has been a little iffy recently.
Are you sure it just doesn't intimidate you like the eatertainment place?
There's just so many biscuits, sandwiches. I don't know what to do. I should also say I never eat out anymore because I have 3 small children who just don't like food. I got a real problem to fix here, folks. Anyway, that's all we got for today's episode of Extra Serving. All she wrote. We have no interviews. We're sending you out in style. Alicia Kelso, as always, thank you.